morning, good day. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. Super excited to learn more just golden nuggets from real estate investing across Canada and the way that we can apply it to our investing. And especially for those people who are new to it, I think you're going to find a lot of really interesting sort of like I said, nuggets of ways that you can just mold your business to be more successful. So that's what we're aiming for here. And as always, Sandy McCay's here with me.
Yeah. Hey, Rob.
Morning.
Morning. Exactly. That's what we're here for. We're here to share some awesome knowledge. I'm excited to do that again. We've got a great guest lined up. It's going to be an awesome show.
Absolutely. Everybody listening, please go over to breakthroughreipodcast.ca. There you can see our sort of family of podcasts that we have going on there, and also listen to every show that we've done on this one and get our free gift.
Of course, our free gift, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estates. And also, when you pick that up, you'll get on our email list, so you never miss out on an episode and all the fun stuff we got going on. So definitely go do that. And we would love for you to join us and take that little step to get a little closer to us. And we promise lots of good information.
So what are they going to get? They're going to get like information on, I guess, your real estate group that you've got. What's that one called again?
Yeah, Vaughan Investors Club. They'll get the odd little mention of that probably. So we host that every third Wednesday of the month in Vaughan, just north of Toronto. So if anyone's in the GTA or we have people coming from pretty far. So if you're anywhere within striking distance of the GTA on a Wednesday evening, you can go grab some more information on that. VaughanInvestorsClub.com.
Or you can just purposely drive there specifically for that. You don't even have to be in the neighborhood. You could just plan on going there.
Yeah.
And then like, are you guys doing property tours and stuff like that still?
We are planning on doing more of that. We haven't done much of it yet. We're going to get to that. I might have promised a little bit of that or mentioned that at least. And we haven't done one yet, but we're looking at doing that a little more into the fall season and beyond. It's been challenging finding time, to be honest, this summer for it all, but we're going to get to that. It's going to be,
people usually press the pause button in summertime. It is quite difficult to get people out doing things when, it's such a short window to get all of those fun summer things in there that people want to get in.
It's also like, summer 2023, it's just a really interesting time for real estate investing. The deals look different than they used to in a lot of these markets that we've been investing in. So we're kind of looking at the approach and what people are actually interested in looking at and potentially buying, because a lot of the stuff that worked even a year ago, 2 years ago, doesn't necessarily work, at least not in the same markets, in the same way. And that's not probably, might not be the case forever, but for this moment in time where the interest rates have gone through the roof really fast, and things like rental rates and things haven't quite caught up to make sense from a cash flow perspective. We're looking at deals a little differently. So you actually have to make deals happen a lot more than you used to. They don't just show up and they're just there and it's easy. There's a lot more fun actually if you can if you know what you're doing.
You can go back 10 years and you could talk to somebody else and they'd say the exact same thing as you just said.
Hey, you're right. Exactly.
I've always kind of said that, look, if you're going to go, get started in real estate investing, you just compare what's on the market to each other at that time. There's no point in thinking about what deal you could get 2 or 3 years ago. It's like, go out, see what there is, compare, those things that are in your realm of what you're looking for to each other and pick the best one.
For the long-term approach for sure, which is what, mostly what we'd recommend. And that's definitely the way, because we, 10 years ago, we used to look at something and it said, oh, that only cash flows, it was like a duplex. That only cash flows $1,000. So that's not good anymore. Or that's not as good as I used to cash flow 1,500 on these all day long. Now those numbers are slightly different, but you're right. You can't look backwards too much, because that is not indicative of what's coming or what's there currently. And you can only control what's there currently. And so you got to take advantage of whatever you can.
Yeah, like shifting strategies and thinking of other different creative ways of making the deal work. And speaking of that, we're still doing our Peterborough property tours. We've been once a month, you know,
Mhm.
getting out there and seeing the different opportunities, mostly for student rentals, because they seem to be, you know, actually quite a good option up there with the rules and regulations the way that they are, and allowing up to 10 bedrooms for student rentals, and getting a legal, certificate to run it that way. So that's always been a really interesting opportunity. And right now we've actually, James and I actually have two, not to sort of make this current events, but we've got two really good student rental properties on the market. So anyways, if people want to talk to us about those tours or the properties that we have on the market right now, get in touch with me, please. And go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review on this podcast, and what you'd want to hear, and what you like, what you don't like, all that stuff. You know how to do it. And now I think, is that it?
That's it from my end.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get into the interview.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's go.
All right, awesome. Well, we've got Alla Ladygina standing by, and I think I got that right, Ladygina. And we're going to be talking to her for the next little while here, talking about all the things she's up to. And Alla is a full-time real estate investor. She's owner of Horizon Capital Real Estate Group. They focus on acquisition and long-term hold of apartment buildings throughout Ontario. She's also the executive director of the Canadian Real Estate Women Association, which is a national nonprofit promoting different organizations and groups focused on the success of women in real estate. And CREWA, for short, also offers monthly opportunities to meet with industry leaders who are also supportive of women's achievements throughout real estate. So really excited to have you on the show, and can't wait to learn more from you here in the next little bit.
Let's dig into this. Welcome.
Hello. Yeah, it's nice to hear you here and be on this side of a screen. And I was just listening to you guys and probably could have listened to that for a long time.
Oh, come on.
Thinking about where am I anchored, like which prices and which interest rates, where's my anchor, which when I see and hear deals and what I'm wishing for, what I'm planning for, what we can realistically think about. So yeah, several deals are right now in a sale process or buying process, and we just cannot be anchored to whatever was happening 10 years 1 year ago. We can only work with what we have today.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've seen, somebody that I'm out with as a client or as a fellow investor and look at a deal and go, you know what, this is way too expensive. They're asking way too much. And then like a year later, the price has gone up like 25%, and having the same conversation or whatever, but someone else buys it, right, and looks like a genius a few years after that.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe at that time when they were looking at it, it wasn't the best deal out there. That's what I just said. Just compare it to what is going on in the market currently. You can't compare things to what it was last year.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, yes. We appreciate you coming on. And of course, I would just want to start out, asking you how you got into real estate investing.
Oh, when you invited me, for me, it was like a celebration. And I feel like I'm going back to Costa Rica, remembering the tour last year. And for me, forever, your name is all about joy and combining fun and work together. And the great example of that comprehensive approach to what you do in life and in work. So you cannot just look at the ROIs and time, ROIs and money, ROIs and effort, ROI and stress. It should all come together as ROI in joy of life. So that's not like, let's do Costa Rica again. That's how it was working in my brain. Yeah. And then we're talking to Sandy, and I thought like, this is going to be a really great time together.
Well said. So what did your first, let's start of like how you got interested in real estate, and then talk about sort of your first delve into actually buying a property?
So it all came from understanding where do my money go every month. And I was working hard at that time at building my new career in Canada after immigrating. And my husband was already working at that time, like he was building his career successfully. But then the realization came that the majority of money that we're getting is coming actually from the real estate we're owning. At that time, there was just residential. And just from budgeting carefully and seeing the statements every month, every quarter, and then at the sale, we noticed how much more we were getting from the transactions and from the ability to um, do the renovations. And then later we learned the refinancing. And initially we thought that we would, oh, that works great, but you cannot do that like on a scale. So we just were continuing growing our careers, and we're just buying houses just for each of our sons. That's what we were thinking. One for ours as an RSP for us, and one house as an RESP for each sons. Because at that time we did not put any money into RSP. We were able to deduct all our extra income from the real estate renovations and everything we were doing. So we didn't really need the RSP, RESP. And we were still thinking, is it the right thing that we don't do this and we just invest in houses instead of RESP, like look, those funds, right? And just several years later, we realized that this accidental type of investment, we were just thinking about three. That was our plan, right? Like gradually. And then we realized that yes, you can scale that. We read a couple of good books. We met several successful people. And that was the moment when we realized, you know what, we should be doing more of this. And that was the moment when we realized, like, oh my God, what we were thinking was expensive in 2015. And we let that go, right? Then in 2020, the thought was just like, oh my God, if only we were able to keep those, I mean, properties, the price would be totally different. So, and since then, we just started doing that way more careful, um, way more mindful, understanding the numbers, because obviously our first buys, they were more emotional. All of them were just a transition from one primary residence to another primary residence. That's how we were able to put only 5% down. We didn't know about house hacking at that moment, but on our third property, we started doing house hacking because the basement was too large, and we were not planning. We wouldn't be able even to use that and like utilize that space, like opportunity. So we got the renters at the bottom, and we at the lower level, and then onto other houses we got tenants, and the experience was great, despite the fact that situation with the LTB was already not as healthy as we all could wish. And then when we became landlords, we started following many different groups, like Kyla's Ontario Landlord Watch. We started to be more and more in the community of landlords and investors. Then soon we realized that not every landlord is an investor. Not every investor is not necessarily the landlord in the common sense of it. So yeah, just gradually, step by step, never stopping really, even though sometimes the only one thing you want to do is just stop and just step back. And sometimes you're thinking, why did I get into all this? Because being an active real estate investor is when you do all that heavy lifting, which passive investors, they don't maybe see. But we still think it's worth it so much, even in the challenging summer of 2023, when it is really for the strongest ones to survive and to keep growing and to stay positive. This is also a great thing. This is, this is a challenge, but we enjoy the roller coaster.
Well, I am going to get into challenges in 1 minute, but I actually want to go back because I just want to, okay. You mentioned you and your husband came to Canada. So where did you come from, and were you already into real estate investing at all when you got to Canada?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we were in real estate investing. I came from Russia, and he
Hmm.
also came from Russia, but he is from another country in Eastern Europe. And when we came here, the only one luggage we had in sense of in real estate is that our parents always said that you need to own your own primary residence.
Hmm.
So you can call it old school, maybe not for millennials, whatever, but that's exactly what kept us comparing continuously the benefits of renting and benefits of owning. That's where it all started.
So did you start out with like, so you just basically flipped your way up? Is that what you did? You started with one principal residence and you guys fixed it up and then sold it for more and bought something else and did the same thing? Or is that, did you start
The
renting right away?
the first one we started renting, obviously, because we just came, we didn't have a credit history, we didn't even plan that far. So we just came with a very young child, 3 years old, and just two of us with very limited resources, even in terms of knowledge. So we didn't know anyone except a couple of friends, and we just were happy with renting because what we were able to rent here was much more than what we could rent in Moscow. So even with the square footage of a rental apartment, we were very, very happy. But then the power of network. Some of our one of our friends, they just bought an apartment, and I asked, what do you think? How do you feel? And they said the only one regret is that we didn't do that 10 years ago. And that really got to like the very deep, it really touched me. And I started to think, okay, we're not ready to buy, we don't have money, we don't have like credit history, we have nothing. But it was the moment when I started asking, how can we buy, instead of, oh, like, we
Saying you
can't.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I just started to think, how can we buy, what are exactly are the barriers. So we connected with a realtor who helped them, and we sat together, we figured out, and you know what, it happened that we could. So in just 4 months, less than a year after we entered Canada, we bought our first, that was a condo. Again, because that's what we were thinking we could buy, because we came from Moscow, and it's like many million people, very large city, right? And everyone lived there in condos. No one really live there in houses. So we bought a condo. On that condo, during just natural appreciation and a bit of a flip, we were able to get enough money in a couple of years for the down payment, and then we bought a house in Toronto at the Lakeshore and Kipling. We still have we still have that house, and we duplexed it. And then after that, it's just because of analyzing of what's going on in our own portfolio, we started to move gradually, like one after another. We were not thinking at that time duplexes or house hacking or anything. We were just, yeah, just doing step by step of what we thought would be normal, what we thought. Because at that time, even owning three houses would be a mind blowing thought. But very quickly, we were also having children, and we were joking that we were either buying a house or making a one child a year. So
Mhm.
so we were pretty busy. And but I can say that on that wheel of life, we were working on all of those areas. Sometimes I wish like we can even be that successful right now as we were at that time, because we were very mindfully growing each of those, so we didn't go reckless in any of those. And then, yeah, then just later we realized that, and I think that market also shifted. If market didn't shift, didn't change, maybe you could still be buying like one single family home a year, cash flowing like what, three, 400, whatever, and just be happy with that after 20 years. But the market shifted. We realized that we cannot really do scale what is not perfect. Like when you scale what is not perfect, you're just scaling your mistakes, right? And it makes harder and harder. And then we just realized that for at least fourplex should be there to be able to cash flow. And like 2021 showed you that even duplex is not a way to grow anymore, unfortunately, when we talk about scales. And then became the idea of leaving a job. Sorry. You need to give me a sign, otherwise I'll be just
Well, you're making our job easy, but we got the questions for you, and I just wanted to go in sort of a progressive manner here, because I want to talk about like all of those things sound like very interesting, almost too good to be true. When you said, okay, I didn't, that's one mistake I think a lot of people make, is they go, well, I just can't do it, I don't have the ability to do it, and then they don't look into seeing what are the barriers, what things do I need to address in order to put myself in a situation where I can do it, instead of just thinking that they can't. But on top of that challenge, which you guys met and actually overcame pretty easily, what were some of the other big challenges that you think you faced starting out?
I would say that not having proper network. At some point, we realized that the resource that we really need, and that can really help us grow, is I don't know. It may sound like a cliche, but now when we know how important that is, but at that time we didn't know. We just came to that very naturally. Just sitting, we talk a lot, we reflect a lot. You can call it business meetings, whatever. But we were sitting and saying, like, what resources we don't have. And at that time, we had great qualification for mortgage. We even had some money that we got from refinancing of previous properties. But we were thinking and sitting and thinking, what can we, like, what's the bottleneck? And we realized that that was not that we didn't know enough people who did what we want to do, who did that before us, and who did that very successfully. Not in terms of money, but also that they're very happy about that. And we didn't know where to get those people. Like, we followed some groups on Facebook. Well, that was like back in 2000, what, like 17 maybe. We had no idea at that time, before that boom that we had a couple of years ago. No one was talking about real estate this way. Most of people we knew were talking like, this is so hard, tenants are a pain, who do you think you are, where will you get money, who will give you that much if it's so hard to get for like $500 for the mortgage, who do you think will give you $1 million for a bigger building, like things like that. And we didn't have answers to those questions. So for us, it was really important to get we didn't know how it's called. We didn't know that there was called a network or social networking event. We just knew that we need someone who did that. And then we started to work on that in simultaneously with other things we were doing, because the rest of the job didn't go anywhere. We needed to make that time, and we needed to use that time to network with people. So I think that was coming from both, from books and from social media. And that's where, again, gradually we started to learn about those people. And then after we saw more people, after we saw what they're doing, we realized that we have actually way more challenges that we thought. For example, that was when we learned that banks are going to only finance you until you have, like, say 10 properties, or maybe 20 if you're lucky, and all the other properties are cash flowing enough. We didn't think about that before. We only realized that when we saw people who were facing those challenges.
Well, I think that a big part of that is also, until you meet people and you see that there are people buying that amount of places and having that many doors and having big portfolios, it's like you don't even realize that you can do that. And then all of a sudden the challenge becomes, well, how do I do what they're doing when they've got 30? And from what I hear, like 20 is almost impossible, but I want to do 30 too, as well, and those type of things. And I think the network is a big part of that, a big part of, like, instead of having naysayers, right, the people that exactly what you were talking about, they'll go, well, why would you want to deal with that, and where are you going to get the money? And I would say, just don't even bother with it. It sounds like too much trouble. And I know somebody that did that, and now they're broke. So
Oh
you
yeah,
shouldn't do that.
aunt of my grandma, she was in real estate and she got broke. Oh, for sure, lots of stories.
And
like
so then you go to these networking, you meet people doing what you want to do, and they're all saying, yeah, like, how can we boost each other up? How can we share information? How can we all be more successful? And so that is a huge key factor in
Yeah, it was
realizing that you can do it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then you also learn, you see different examples. And it's not that you want to mimic everyone, right? You just choose what is really resonating with you, who is doing what. Everyone's doing their different strategy and everyone's more or less happy. And you can just choose from that. And that's the moment when you realize, oh, if this sounds too good to be true, what do I need to learn to see that it's true? Or maybe it's not gonna work, for example, and like things like that. So it just really helps you with open up your mind and receive more information, but your job is still to filter what is possible from what is impossible, and what's going to work for you, which may be working for Sandy or for Rob, but it's not going to work for me. Getting back again to that return on time, return on joy, return on stress, return on joy. That's a good term.
Return on Joy is a good one. I
I
love
like
that.
it.
Did you
Trademark.
you mentioned one thing I loved earlier, you mentioned that you really bought your first couple of properties because you had thought that you had one child, you might as well get a property for the child. And I think you did that twice. Is that correct? Kind of the
Three
first
times.
couple three times. So three times you kind of made, well, you kind of went through that really fast, but I think there's something that I see people get a lot more emotionally involved in a purchase like a house when they tie it to something that's really powerful in their life, like a child.
Yep.
And that's sometimes a great trigger to just kickstart things for people, because it gives you
100%.
that real need to do it. Because a lot of people just, the thought of retiring or things that it's too far into the future, and it doesn't really tie it to what do I need to do today to actually take action and move forward on these things, and then they never do it. It just goes farther and farther into the future. When you have a child there, it all of a sudden brings some power and meaning to a house, and it gives a little more energy there. So I think you did a smart thing there, and just thinking about that and tying those two things together. I think it's a great action item for a lot of people out there, is to just think about how they could impact your child's life by buying just one property, and the impact that can have. As you advanced, you've gone into now apartment buildings and bigger acquisitions. Can you talk to us about the difference, better or worse, and in those types of acquisitions versus what you were mainly doing originally, duplexes to fourplexes in that range, and maybe some of the benefits for not only you, but other investors who invest with you, and even the community?
Yeah, so in this environment in the market, I think that for us, this is what we decided, and we're not going to go back. I think we bought one fourplex after we already were buying apartment buildings, and after the amount of work we put in, and we still, in terms of prices, depend on comparables on the market. We're not going back again. So apartment buildings just give you way more security and way more stability and way more predictability, even though they're not something which is going to just solve all your problems and make your life happy. No, it's still a lot of work. It's still, especially if you are not buying, say, turnkey buy and hold, and you're planning to really appreciate and force the price like relatively quickly, as much as we can use the term quickly in this environment today, with the rates, because it really slowed down refinancing on some of our properties. It's still very stable, and it's really works the way that real estate should be. You enter real estate not necessarily for cash flow today. You make the generational change, and you create that wealth, which is going to be massive if you invest today. Don't touch it, nourish it, and let it grow. When I say don't touch it, I mean don't touch the money. Don't keep touching the building and tenants and your business, but not the money. Don't try to refinance and pull the money back as soon as you can. And then when we're talking about 5 years for maybe the first refi, and then 10 years for the nearest for the soonest repositioning of the building. Are you planning to sell it? Are you planning to whatever you're planning to do with this? Don't touch it too quickly. So that's one of the something which not all people like, that you won't get much of a cash flow with the multifamily, and then it takes a longer time. But otherwise, it's way more stable. You can by much better quality of buildings. What I also love about that, that affects the whole community, because if you are able to reposition the whole building, very often it can affect the whole life of the community, because the tenants environment is much healthier. The new tenants attracted are totally different people with newer families, like younger people who, I'm so happy, and I pretty often get this news when they have children in our apartments. So something where there was a hoarder who really needed a mental health support, who really was not knowing what he or she is doing, and then we clean up the space, we make it all beautiful, working, adding laundry and everything that a young family may need. And then there is a child, maybe then two children, like the whole thing that we do that in smaller buildings too, but when it's a bigger building, then the scale is totally different. And my dream would also be to be able to develop, say, a whole subdivision, and then add their walk-in clinic, and maybe some kind of, maybe not school right now, like not necessarily we will be able to push for, and like say a new school, but if several investors go to come together and we are able to advocate for a new school, for a new walk-in clinic, potentially a hospital, that's where my mind is going. That's where we're affecting the whole community, the whole life of Canada. I think that's, and with the Horizon Capital, what we have, we say, like the motto that we have, that every family can and should invest in an apartment building, should own a part of an apartment building. And the reason is not about investors who invest in apartment buildings. It's also about how many units we can create together, investing in this local investment business, because it's a local business, right? When we say local business, it's not just about cookies or soap or things like that, or bakery. Local real estate investor is someone who's making your community better here. And we provide together, we provide units for all those families who live here, who need it here so badly. That's what I like about multifamily, when one, two, three really good decisions can affect the whole community. And that's the beauty of it. And
Yeah.
then plus for investors too, you don't have to qualify for mortgage. You can join together
Well,
sources
this is,
of
you're
people.
talking about if they're so okay. So tell us a little bit about Horizon Capital then, and what you guys are able to help people do. Which is,
So what
I think what you were getting into right there, right? Isn't it? Is that what you were saying? Like you wouldn't have to qualify for the mortgage. That's if
exactly.
you're saying if somebody was to invest with Horizon Capital. So tell us about Horizon Capital and how you work with investors in order to help them build this, interesting and really impressive idea that you guys have.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say that it's not an idea anymore. And for several years, we were able to work with joint venture partners and buy different buildings. We bought just in June. We closed on a complex of 8 townhouses in Pembroke, and we're already working, and we were able to turn over 2 units. So that the work with us provides them with an opportunity. First, forget about the headache, because all our joint venture partners, they're passive. They don't make any decisions, which sometimes can be, some people think, well, actually no one of our joint venture partners think that, like, oh, you cannot make a decision, what are you going to do? Well, you trust those who are doing that for years and who are educating themselves for years. And
Mhm.
that means that without any further stress, you just invest your money, and you don't have to qualify for mortgage, because this is a completely different type of mortgage. This is a commercial a loan, and they don't go to see how much you spend on your car or how much you spend on this or that. Yes, they may check for sure that you have enough to just support yourself, but they're not going to ask you to qualify for that, say, I don't know, multi-million building, because they understand that no income probably will be able to support a whole building. And so yeah, that's passive. That doesn't take any credits from your ability to buy further real estate you want to buy. And then you don't need to have the whole down payment you may need for anything else. For example, I don't know, think about $200,000. You basically don't, you can't buy anything. How do I say it polite? You it's not enough to buy something solid and great that you would be able to buy several years ago in good areas. But if you collaborate with other investors, active and passive investors together, you can buy bigger building, which is way more solid
In
than
better areas and
in better
yeah.
areas with better tenants, and it still comes at completely passive. While you don't need to give a portion of the money to like a third party, like a financial advisor or a company who manages your money, you see all statements and you know exactly what's going on. If you think about transaction of that scale, and it's super transparent, which means in simple language, which means that you don't lose your money. It doesn't go through like sand through your fingers,
Hmm.
just like when it happens often when you invest the same. Relatively, it's not a big amount of, unfortunately, money in nowadays when we talk about, say, 100, $200,000. If you just invested with financial advisor, the majority of it will go, if we talk about more or less safe investment, not high
Yeah.
risk, it will go just like sand through your fingers with all the fees that go to financial advisors and everything.
Yeah, just the
And also,
idea of that. If I was drinking water when you had brought up that idea, I probably would have spit it all out on my computer here in front of me. You know, I
which
just
one?
the whole idea of investing with a financial advisor.
But this
You
is
know,
one of the most, like, unfortunately, this is one of the most um,
it's common. Yeah.
common thought that people have in their minds when they get some money and they want to protect that.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, what they're thinking, like, oh, this paper promises me like 10%. That should be a 20% to 20K a year is if I invest spending.
I
And
think you're
then
going
when
way overboard with those promises. I've never heard of any any investments like that with a financial advisor that would have 10 or 20% returns, but I don't know.
no
I,
20, but 10 they may promise you, but then they just don't tell you that, or they do give you the paper, but people just don't read the fine prints, right? That everything will go to the fees and all that stuff.
There's so much trust built in with those companies. You're talking about the major banks, right? They have such a foothold on
they're
that,
selling
on
you
the
one
mind share and
thing,
everything. And
Yeah.
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
but
Then
real estate stays something as a like a sacred cow for, oh, that's only for like really wealthy people,
right.
or like in their mind people have all kinds of myths and assumptions and false limiting beliefs that, oh, it's either for super wealthy and for huge corporations, or oh, I'll have to deal with the tenants and I'll have to be buying single family homes or duplexes or bad
Um,
areas. So in the sweet spot with all this, that's where where local real estate investor sits. So that's us.
so how would people learn more about Horizon Capital?
The best way and the fastest way to go is just to connect with us in Instagram,
Okay.
and that's where the response will come in 24 hours usually.
And what is the Instagram handle?
Horizon Capital Real Estate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should tag it somewhere.
We will. We'll definitely get all of
Yeah, I
that and
will.
put it in the show notes. You recently became a full-time investor. So let's talk about that. Congratulations. How did
Oh,
that
thank you.
come to be? Like, it's a tough decision.
It is very tough decision, and it's not common in the interest environment like we have today. But it also was coming for like a long time, like a couple of years maybe, and then it just crystallized. But I think too many people romanticize that, and like for us, like, and I'm sure you know that it's not all shiny and it's not all roses to become a real estate, like active real estate investor. It basically means that you are working 24/7 now. And also, I don't recommend that to everyone. Just the same way I don't recommend becoming active real estate investor for everyone. This game is not for everyone, and it's very stressful. You can only do it, and you can only do it successfully if you have skills and if you have passion about that. If you cannot live your life without it. And for me, that was the only one way I could live if I left my job and I spend most of my working time in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. And then the other little thing is that when I was planning to do that, the real estate the interest rates, they were completely different. So no matter how can I like tell you that I was preparing and everyone was getting ready, it was all nicely, it was all in the like whirlpool of events and with like, oh my
Mhm.
god, where did the cash flow go, what am I supposed to do? But we still, like, as I say right now to my husband too, that we live on what we did in the past and what we're going to do in the future, right? So because I was working on this since 2015, we were able to get maybe more properties, or we were able to get ready and get more stress how to say resilient, right? Because I'm today is not myself when I just got my 9 to 5 job. I'm totally
Right.
different. And it's also not the first time when I walk away from an established, I would say, career. Because before we immigrated to Canada, I left the career of a surgeon there. I was a very young surgeon, but I was on track. I was working in Moscow by that time. And then there was another moment when we were just sitting, reflecting, and we said, no, this is the time to walk away. And yeah, and same with Vlad. He just became a PhD at that time in Moscow in a great
Wow.
university, and yeah, and we just realized that thinking very proactively, thinking what is the country we're living, what are the other options, what can we do, and that's when you think, and that's the beauty of strategic approach, strategic comprehensive approach to everything. You don't get attached to what you have, you think about what you want to do,
Mm.
where you want to be, you focus on the point B, not where you are today. And that's how the resources, how everything starts to pull you towards the point B where you want to be. And I'm not talking about the universe, the energy, or anything. I'm just talking about very realistic and working things, just like network, money, resources, knowledge, language, all those things.
Yeah, I saw a line recently where I guess a quote where someone was saying, in order to win, you need to be able to get rid of everything that isn't excellent in your life. And you reminded me of that because a lot of people settle into something that's pretty good, and they don't really think about maybe something different or what it could be like if they really strive for a little extra to make it excellent or great or outstanding or whatever word you want to use.
And it's
And
the excellent though is a very dangerous word, because what can be excellent for you may not be excellent for me. For
for sure,
example, I have a sister. She's also a doctor, and for her to leave that field, for her that would be a disaster, like a disaster. Nothing else would make sense because that was her life.
I can
Well,
see
she has
that though.
kids, she has everything, but for her, this is like the core of what she's doing professionally. And she was on. She still left. She went to Germany, but she was only doing that with the condition that she will be able to work as a doctor and continue. And she was pursuing that, and she got it. So now she is a doctor in Germany.
So that is her excellence almost though, right? Like it's
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
different versions for sure.
Yeah,
Everyone's got
Yeah,
different
different
versions.
exactly.
versions.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really, really important, is that you need to be able to figure out that yourself, or to have someone in your life. That's what, again, active investor is doing in a deal. Like, which deal is excellent? Well, one is a deal is excellent for you, another one is excellent for me, but none of them will be working for me. So that's what comes with the experience of an active real estate investor. They're
Mhm.
able to listen to passive investor and understand what will be the excellence for them.
Right.
Sometimes even passive investors, they don't know. Often we see people who would be saying like, oh, I need a cash flow because I heard about financial independence. Then you talk to them and then you realize that they're happy with their careers. They are professionals with a pretty good paycheck. They love the security. They raising young children. They won't be able to say spend too much time not with children, because they do want to spend the time with children. So
Mhm.
for them, actually, the best strategy is not cash flow today to get like that extra whatever hundreds dollars, if you're lucky thousands.
Yeah.
For them, it's much better to stay at the life style that they are, and make sure that they invest for future, say for 5+ years, and that's when they will be getting the most of those benefits after. But you only recognize that when you're able to talk to them, and it's not always in the first moment when you talk to them. because sometimes they're just so like, oh yeah, I know what I need. And that's our job also, to figure out what's the excellence for you.
Right.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
help them and guide them based on your experience. And I think that's,
Mhm.
some people don't know what they, or they think they know what they want. They might, benefit from another perspective on that, just based on your
100%.
experience.
Hmm.
And everyone needs to build wealth in some way, shape, or form. In my opinion, they need to invest. They don't necessarily need to invest actively or in this very risky way, or not that it's risky, but anything with a higher return
Hmm.
has a perception of being riskier. So, anyone, not everyone is going to be open to that. Not everyone needs to do that, but everyone needs to invest in some way, shape, or form. It's very, I would say, very insecure to live just
Oh, 100%.
off your income, just
Yeah.
no matter how big that income is. So all this stuff has been pretty incredible what you've done. So congratulations. What
Oh,
does
thank you.
inspire you to go forward though from here? And what do what's the motivation and inspiration to keep going?
I'm an addict to dopamine. I love
Yeah.
dopamine. I love anticipation of great things. I actively seek for that inspiration from other people. I genuinely love talking to them and listening to their stories, because you never know what they're going to tell you. You don't know how incredible is every person, and that's what I also love about real estate. Um, um, People are doing people are doing brave things. People are, most of the people whom I know, I don't know, maybe it's just my circle that naturally people who are attracted to me, I don't know, but people are just so genuinely focused on evolving and making this world better, no matter how it sounds. And I, what you know, what I also love, that they're very open. They are open about, they're like, yes, I want to have money, and yes, I meditate in the morning, and yes, I want to spend 2 months with the nature, and yes, you know what, I'm sick of this cold, I want to be in Costa Rica. And like, they just openly say what they want. Rob, you're like, why Costa Rica? You're so serious.
No, I
And
got it.
yeah,
It's
and
Go ahead.
no, and that's what inspires me, how open people are. And when you talk more with people who are open about their dreams, and they actually making their dreams reality, like very actively, that's what inspires me, because every day I learn about more and more. But then there is another trick again. Keep in mind what is your excellence, because then the shiny object syndrome goes very close to multiple sources of inspiration. So just always have your
Yeah.
filters there, and always remember that no one knows what is your wish. Everyone can help you here and there with achieving your wish, but it's your job to remember what is your wish. What do you want? And
Yeah, and I think that's very important to not be afraid to say it, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of people are, because they're
a
afraid of
lot of people are.
ridicule that might come with it.
Exactly. Too many people are living that way. And I'm glad that you said that, because, yes, we often see that.
It's like you
That
said earlier, it's like, you said, who do you think you are? A lot of people will say that when you go to them and say, this is
or
what I want
they
to do.
will
They'll
think,
say, who
yeah,
do you
or you
think
will
you are?
think that they think, yep.
I mean, it's like, it's not like I'm planning to be a rock star here. I just want to own a house. What's like, you know, it's not that unrealistic, right?
And
But
there will always be people for whom that's going to be an unrealistic, and there will always be people who will say, oh, that's just that. Oh, there was a funny story. Oh my god, I don't know if we have time, but I was thinking and dreaming about triplex at that time, and I was listening for some kind of mindset video or a podcast or something. And then a man there, he said, look for people who will be cheering on, like, and saying that that's okay, you will get more when you actually achieve the max you thought. And I thought, like, what does he mean? Like, I don't understand what it means. I achieved the max and he's still like sorry for me. Like, is this healthy? But then when it happened in real life, I understood. So we bought I think we bought fourplex at that time. And I thought that we were just like rocking it, like, because we did like incredible, like the largest building possible ever for
mm-hmm,
anyone
mm-hmm.
who is real. And then there was a person, and in one of the REI's meetings, and he said, oh, you bought what? A fourplex? he didn't know who I am. He didn't know anything. The only one thing he said, but don't worry, one step at a time. You will get there.
I don't know
And
if
he was
that's
just
right
and
either,
he
but
was just so genuine. He was just so
that doesn't sound
genuine.
genuine.
Yeah, he probably was one of the investors who are buying like bigger buildings or like whatever. Just like if
Yeah,
you
it's like,
came
oh,
to
you
me and
poor thing. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, he
Like,
didn't say poor. He said like
hopefully,
he's like, I'm very
hopefully you'll
proud.
do
Like that's
better.
great. But they're just like, don't get discouraged, like one step at a time. And today I would totally understood him that it's like, oh, okay, well, fourplex, well, no commercial mortgage, no this, no that, like, well. But that's okay.
But
It's
again,
sometimes
like you
it's better
said,
than nothing. Is
it's
if the
all
deal
in
makes
your,
sense.
it's all in what you want to accomplish personally too. You know,
Yeah, oh,
like
100%. But I'm just
because
saying
for
that
me,
people, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't, but for me, I I have a different idea. Like I've never went, I've got to go multifamily, right?
No,
I've
no,
never.
no.
And
Yeah.
so if someone came to me and said, oh, you, I do have a triplex. So if I was talking about that and they said, oh, well, that's cute, keep trying, you'll get there. I almost feel like that would be like,
No, no,
uh,
that's a bit different. Yeah, in that conversation, he was very genuine, and it's not that he was sorry or anything. He thought that I was. Maybe I
you
gave.
probably
You know what?
mentioned that you
Maybe
wanted
I
to
already
do
gave
more.
him some clues that I want more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There
Because
you
who
go.
would like normally who would say that? And I know like that's a genuine person. Like he's really great, and
Yeah. Don't say
that's
who it
exactly
was.
no. And you, I don't even think maybe, oh, maybe you do. Um, yeah, but it's just about how your mind is
Hmm.
shifting, and how sometimes you think like, who would even think that having three houses, like instead of fourplex, add anything you want. Who would even think like having a house would be a possible? Like everyone would be so jealous. That's why people don't share. Like going back to that idea, right? That's why people don't share sometimes their successes, because they will think that, oh, someone
Oh
will
yeah.
see it from me. Oh, someone will
Yeah.
go for that idea. Well, people
Hmm.
may not even care.
Yeah. I
Or
know.
people may think that you're a poor thing doing
I
this thing,
know
right?
Mhm.
investors that have like 12, 15 houses and literally don't tell anyone. Their family doesn't know. They don't network. They don't talk about it. It's just,
Yeah.
and I find that actually like incredibly odd. Not that you would want to boast or brag, but I mean, if I feel like, I don't know, it's interesting to kind of wonder why you would want to keep it to yourself. And I think probably the big reason is because, oh, Mr. Big Shot, then all of you think that people are going to start to think that way of you. But I mean, let's
Yeah.
be
And they want
honest,
to,
if you have one rental property and you're talking to someone that doesn't, there's a chance that they're going to think of you that way too. So I just think it's really important to get around those people, like you
I think
mentioned,
it's
that
very
are going to
important too.
lift you up instead of try to hold you down. So,
Yeah.
and there's a
Yeah.
lot of that, and mentally that can be like very, very easily that can take a hold of you and try to push you back down
One
if you
hundred,
don't,
and it
if you
will
let it.
at some point. It will if you don't change your mindset,
Mhm.
right?
Well, listen, on that note, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything today. We are, like we mentioned, going to have all of your contact info in the show notes. I'm sure there's going to be people that want to reach out and talk to you more because of all the exciting stuff you're doing. So congratulations and
Thank
thank you
you.
again.
Thank you guys
Yeah, absolutely.
for inviting me.
Alla too. Let's make sure we get the info for the Real Estate Women's Association as well.
Hmm.
We didn't get a chance to touch on that too much, but I know that's one of your passions there and something that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
So
And we'd love to know just how to get more involved in that. Those that are listening.
and everyone's welcome. We always have men, and we always have men speakers and men guests. So you guys are always welcome too. It's not only women only. It's for women, and just like for all our families, we only can achieve the best success when we work together and understand each other better. And it's all the best way is also always on Instagram. I think it's canadian.re.women.association, and it's always in my bio too. It's a pretty long one, but it's like on a more an official way to do things. And there is also a great website, CREWA.ca, where everything can be answered, and you can send an email at info@CREWA.ca. um yeah, and we're growing very in a very genuine way to make sure that we don't interrupt other the work of other great women real estate investors groups and clubs. And our role is to promote them and to let them bring all the benefits to all the amazing women. We actually have a lot of good stuff happening for women, being done for by multiple organizations. It's just we need a bit more awareness about that. That's why we run every month offline meetings in Toronto. And thank you
Okay.
for having me today. It's been really my pleasure. I
Well,
even forgot
again,
to run a
thank
Zoom.
you. And we will have all of that contact info in the show notes. So, you know, you don't have to write it down or whatever. And we'll make sure that all the links are there, and anyone who's interested can get in touch with you right through there. So thank you. Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Anywhere on Instagram or any social media channel, it's Sandy McKay at it's Sandy McKay, or Sandy at freedomreps.com.
Okay. And people can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.